there's that berm or whatever you want to call it in the front, and there is a lot of vegetation there. Kelly, can conditions that we put in an approval, can they say that those trees must stay there, that berm must stay there?
Well, you can certainly put in conditions, like that, whether those specific trees stay there. Usually you'd have a condition saying that they must maintain the vegetation, and if it's dead, dying, diseased, remove it, put a new one in. I don't know what the vegetation there is, but if it's, you know, a really big tree and it dies or something, then they put in a little sapling, you know, but it's to maintain it in a good and vibrant condition.
ARB can come down a minimum. This is what we didn't ask for a tree survey. I'm gonna go there with that. But the ARB has is it 8 inches in diameter? Large is that it should be disturbed? Is that kind of?
Well, when you do a tree survey, and then after the survey, you identify what trees you want to remain and try to position the house so that it fits. I think that their main, item that blocks the visibility from the street is the berm. The berm's not going away. It's earth. It's going down. I mean, you can ask for that to stay, and that's not going to die or go away. You may lose some grass on it, but it's basically going to be a berm. There are trees, though, and those trees would certainly help to screen the view.
But with that being said, the house across the street, they clear cut the entire property. Literally, clear cut everything.
That's what I'm saying.
But as a property owner, if I want to clear cut all my trees, and it's within a boundary, who's gonna stop me?
But that's what I'm saying, if it's a condition, why aren't these being imposed?
Why are we doing it for this home and not for the other 12 that were built?
I'm
just asking. I'm
Once
not
we
arguing.
approve, but once we approve something, it's not our job to police what the conditions are met. And that's the problem that I'm having, is because we're repeatedly being told we're gonna have this, and then a year down the road, or 2 years down the road, it's nothing like what we approved.
I'm not gonna
You
answer.
know what
I'm not gonna
where
answer
I'm
that.
going with it.
I
So,
know where you're going.
but in this case, in this particular case, the argument has been that because of the berm and because of the trees, you're not gonna see this massive structure. So that is integral. Those conditions have to be rock solid in my estimation, because that's their argument.
I know that the prior resolution, and this is something that we can always ask the building department to look into. And Stu can always, John, we can go back on this. Shade trees are supposed to be provided on all roadways in the subdivision. I'm telling you, we put something in there from 2003. It's up to that building department to make sure that these items are being done. We can ask this applicant, you need to review the 2003 resolution. We want you to put these trees in as stated, and where the berm is, we can ask for shade trees to be put in there. And anything that's the south side is going to look. I mean, there's certain things in here that we went through in 2003 and asked the original applicant to do. They would have to follow this. And to be honest with you, I can't ask the building department to clear all the shade trees.
I understand that, but again, I don't think, well, I've only been on the board for one other house up there, but I don't know that any other applicant has had the argument that our house is gonna be hidden. You would know that better than me.
All those houses, this house is down a slope. All the other houses are basically flat. And
Well,
they have the one all the way in the back, the curve, they have a hill behind them. But all of them are basically flat. This one happens to be down in a bit, for lack of a better word.
Which should help reduce its impact.
Right.
I think there's one step that seems to be missing, and similar, excessively dissimilar, to the extent that it detrimentally affects the neighborhood. I think I don't know if that's the assumption that a house that's 20 feet longer is going to detrimentally affect the values of the neighborhood, but it seems to me that's the exercise. I mean, I haven't heard anybody say that that's.
Oh, I spoke my piece on that
the stipulations that we're talking about, I think they understand what we're going to be asking for.
5,000, probably about 19%.
Dennis, you said 5,300 is 18%?
That's 18.5% over that lot number 13. And 10% over was 4,926. Somebody mentioned 5,000.
And just for the record, these are footprints.
That's the footprint.
Footprint for the first floor.
Yep.
Which would be straight down to
The
the
basement.
basement.
Correct.
5,000 would be about 13%, 12.9. About 13% bigger than if you go up to 5,000. 10% is 4926.
I'm willing to go to 18.5%. The applicant dropped down quite a considerable amount. I
I would accept that.
mean, they're working with us, they dropped it, and I think they completely understand the length of the basement and the garage. I know Rich is still staying at 10.
No, I'd go to 5,000, I said, providing the basement is reduced and the garage is in the back. So 5%, 5,000 is, yeah, again, that's over the largest, which was already enlarged when they came before us.
And you stayed 5,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How does the applicant feel about that?
What do you think about the 5,000?
We'll see. We'll go back to the drawing table. We'll see what we can come up. Basically.
Without going through a whole craziness, can you do something with 5,000 and one with 53, just to show us the difference? Could you do that without, I'm talking simple,
And 56 and 59.
To me, that's making them do more work.
well, I need, because I don't, hopefully Crystal can get the next meeting, and the next meeting is May 1st, and
What I would suggest, though, we get another extension from the applicant beyond the first, because submitting things at the meeting isn't working. It's really, we can't talk about that. So if you think, Barry, can you get it in 2 weeks? Because if you get it in 2 weeks, then we could have it for the 2 weeks after that. But I'm not sure.
22nd was
Oh, okay. So you have another week or two.
Yeah, offer that.
Try.
Well, look,
I want-
it's up to the applicant. When do you think you could have it in?
I want to offer one offer again. Might be, let's put it in the middle. If we have like 2 and 2 on it, maybe everyone will agree to 5150.
Come on, let's make a deal.
It kind of is.
we're trying to come up with something here.
Well, it's hard to even understand this without knowing what is actually happening.
Once we tell them the square footage, they're going to come up with a.
Come up with a full plan. Correct.
With what we're asking for, with the 3 items.
And it's a good question Dennis asked if we can have it ready in 2 weeks.
Well, if it's the meeting's the 22nd, you wouldn't have to get it until the 8th of May. You give you 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'll give it a
Okay.
go. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's if you give us an extension.
Yeah, we are okay with that.
Okay, well,
How do we need to look at the calendar, because then they don't have to come back to the May 1st meeting, correct? If they give us the extension tonight?
Correct. They won't need to come into the May 1st meeting, but the extension would be, so they would be on the 22nd, so it would be until June 5th. Your decision would have to be made on June 5th. That way you would discuss it on the 22nd.
could you tell me the dated submission?
The 8th of May.
The 8th of May is a submission, okay.
May 8th is submitted on the
Okay.
agenda for May 22nd, and then the final decision by June 5th.
Okay.
That works for the applicant,
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not here the
Yes.
22nd.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not here the 22nd, I'm away that week.
You will be with the rest of the board members will be here. All right. Now, the applicant proposed 5150. What is the percentage on that? I'm just-
I'm percentage guy, huh? Okay.
15,
Well,
16?
it's about, but hang on. I'm working on inferior equipment here.
Like the 5,000.
You want to see him dance for us?
What's that?
You want to see him dance for the video?
Yeah, thinking that's okay.
That's 16.3%.
Mine's still there. If we go to 5150, so the applicant has something to work on. Rich?
Again, I'd like to see a 5,000. If he wants to come in with an alternate, fine. But again, with the other three conditions, we're not just talking about the square footage.
Sandy?
5,000.
So let him come in with both.
That's 16%, right?
16% is 5150.
Oh, 5150.
5150 is 16%. You want that one?
I'll take it.
The applicant was gonna come to the middle. 5150?
I'll take it.
I'll take the 5150. But now you have,
I understand.
all right?
I see.
I kind of predicted this dilemma, so.
Okay.
You're good to what, you don't need anything else? You're good to what we had time to do?
I think we
Oh,
know.
I'm fabulous.
Does he know the other things we talked about?
We already talked about it.
No, I want to make sure about
Yeah.
the garage and the basement.
Yep. Yeah, we're aware of that.
I'll tell you right up front, because of the slope, it might not be some slab on grade, it might have crawl space, just because of the way we'll be dealing with it, but, yeah, okay.
Okay.
That I
You
understand.
understand, okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Have a good
Thanks
night.
for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is shops of Woodbury. Review revised site plan, additional documents related to mixed-use development to include retail stores, restaurants, and a hotel. Said property is located at 57 Route 32, on Wilson Lane, and is known as the Village of Woodbury Tax Act Section 225, Lot 1, Lot 34.1 and 34.2. The second is my,
Good evening.
anyone here from Homeland Towers, is there, from the cell tower?
Excuse me. I can hear. Yep.
Really? You guys are trying to hide me? Before I do that, Rich has to work on a simulation, the traffic simulation.
Okay.
Okay. All right, for the record. Received a note, in the morning on April 3rd, we requested a meeting. On April 12th, we received reports from H2M and NP&B, and on 4/16, we received a report from Baylor. Hi.
Good evening. How are you all? Good, good. For the record, I'm Dominic Cordisco from the law firm of Drake Loeb, here on behalf of the shops at Woodbury. We have the owner here, Aaron Goldklang, and as well as the rest of the design team, including Steve Esposito and Kevin Van Heis. Since the last time we appeared before you, when you made a determination of consistency under seeker comparing this plan with the previously approved Cabela's plan, we've been moving forward with the engineering, and that's really the purpose for us being before you tonight, is that we felt we were at a stage where we were ready to submit to get your comments regarding the engineering and the site layout revisions that we've made in response to your comments. We realize this is an ongoing process, and just to be quite upfront about it, we understand that the village board is currently considering an amendment to the zoning law regarding hotel uses that will affect this project, and that would also affect the zoning board application that's currently pending. So we have not reappeared before the zoning board, until the village board decides, if it decides to do anything, but whatever it decides to do affects that application. But nonetheless, to continue on, we have been making and working on revisions to the project, and I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Van Heis from Kimley Horn now to walk you through those changes.
Thanks, Dominic. When we met with you the last time, we had some comments, we had some discussion with John, and as a result of that, we did make some minor modifications to the plan. We've reviewed those with NISDOT, and they are, in theory, acceptable to them. As we advanced the plan, we also made some minor modifications in preparation for the last submission, so I'll just touch on those briefly tonight to bring you up to speed. With respect to John's comments, we were requested to provide a median at our entrance adjacent to the existing gas station to prohibit left turns from the easternmost driveway of the gas station. So we provided an exhibit to NISDOT with a 50-foot long, 3-foot wide median to prevent that turning movement. They are, in theory, in support of that, so that is now part of our plan. The second thing that was requested was that we provide 2 ingress lanes all the way through to the right turn into the park and ride lot, which we also complied with. We did receive a comment in Dennis's review about the width of those lanes, and we'll work with Dennis to figure out a way to resolve that. The other changes that were made are on site. Initially, we had believed that we needed to connect our sanitary sewer to the manhole that has been constructed in what is the permanent county park and ride facility. We were able to modify the sanitary sewer plans, so we don't need to do that. So we'll actually be able to sewer on our own property without needing a use permit from them. We're in the process of coordinating with Yonkers Construction, the NISDOT project, as they are regrading around the edge of our property, which will have an impact likely on the size of walls that we're currently showing. And in some cases, we may be able to alleviate them completely. That will be part of our next submission. We have made a minor modification to the emergency access point so that we can now access that either from north or south on Route 32. Previously, you could only access it from the north. Now you'd be able to access it from both directions. Again, the actual grading of that will depend on what happens as the NISDOT project is completed. That's really the extent of the changes. The rest of the plan is as it was originally, or as it was presented to you the last time, and we will continue to work through addressing Dennis's comments and any comments that we receive from John.
Kevin, I just have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you confirm with, and speaking with Scott Geiger last week, there's supposed to be 204 commuter parking spots. I know it's not your responsibility, but when I counted these spots showing up here, you're still short. Maybe I'm not counting right. Do you know what the count is in the parking spots that you're showing on the?
I don't know what it is. This is the most current plan that we received from them. I don't know what the count is, but it is the most current version of the permanent park and ride.
Someone told me it's supposed to be 250. It's not 250. It's 204. Just so the board members are aware of that. That's Scott Geiger, who's the person in charge of the project down there. So I guess we'll have to confirm with him with the number of those. I need to know where those spots are. So we need to get an updated plan to you and give it to us.
Okay.
All right. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, that's.
Who am I going to start with? Go ahead, Jonathan. Here's the evidence.
Thank you very much, Jonathan Loughlin from NPV Village Planners. Have you seen our memo from
We have not.
August 12th? Because I emailed it, Kevin, to you. I didn't get it bounced back, but
I just sent it to Dominic, but they haven't had a chance to review it.
okay, well, I'll go through my comments. Comment one, we were concerned about the grading on the emergency driveway because if you just scale it off, it's about 15% difference from the bottom to the top. So obviously, depending on what happens with the regrading, we just want to make sure that's a workable grade. On the site context, we'll be reviewing the landscaping plan that's coming, and we'll be looking at the edges of everything around the whole perimeter. And with the plans as they stand now, don't show the westbound exit ramp off of Route 6 onto Averill, Route 32. The pavement edges of the ramp that wraps around the site aren't there, and the side slopes. And you mentioned in your presentation that you're going to be getting grading from DOT. Also, Route 6 pavement edge isn't on there, the Larkin Drive pavement edge. So in order to kind of gauge the landscaping and the effectiveness of it, it really would help to see all of the context around the site. In terms of circulation, we'll of course defer to the traffic engineer on specifics, but we noticed that to enter the drive-through at Building 3, you have to come in the main entrance, make a right, make another right, and go all the way around the building to get to the drive-through side. That may not be too obvious to people, and if they attempt to go into the commuter lot and see the drive-through, they're not going to be able to make a right to get to it because it's one way out. So we would ask that you maybe look at that, and then at the exit out of the commuter lot, you have 2 lanes coming out, and then you're facing some oncoming traffic, and there's do not enter signs. So you might want to look at sort of how the 2 projects meet up, and whether you could make some of the flow around the drive-through and some of the circulation more user-friendly. On the parking lot landscaping is our comment 4. In the future landscaping submissions, we'll be looking for loading areas, snow storage locations, landscaping on the parking lot islands. And then this is a question I think that we would need you to get together with the building inspector on. You're supposed to be landscaping the area between along the front lot line, and it's hard to tell exactly how to interpret where the front lot line is. In our code, it just says any line that separates you from a street, and it doesn't really explain what a ramp on a limited access highway would be. But certainly, Route 32 Averill is a street, so that's a front line. And we also believe that the ramp wrapping around is another front line, making this a corner lot. But you're supposed to be putting in street trees and landscaping in a front yard. And in some areas, especially at the south side of the site, you've got parking spaces right up against your lot line. And if that's a front line, there'd need to be a space with some landscaping there. Also, every building is supposed to have a 5-foot deep landscape bed around it. We kind of just went through this with the Aldi project across the street, where they're taking out part of the Kohl's and putting it in Aldi supermarket, and the Kohl's has that 5-foot foundation planting, and
We haven't discussed any landscaping yet, so I don't know, you're saying it has to be done?
well, it's part of our review.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we haven't talked about that yet.
Okay, and then, also, the colors of the buildings, the ridge preservation standards are going to apply, section 310.13, because the site is just over 600 feet in elevation.
Yeah. Okay.
So it needs to be addressed if it is over 600 feet in elevation. I don't know if it's just barely, it's around 602, 603. And I'd be happy to get your copy.
I gave him a copy.
I have your report, so we'll determine that. Anything else? I'm looking at it. Sorry, Steve, I'm just. All right, anything else on that, Jonathan?
No, I think that I'll be deferring to the legal team on the seeker issues. And there are a few other small notes that I didn't go over in my review, but I've hit all of the major points that I made.
Just if I could weigh in really quickly, there are no further secret issues. You did make a determination that this was consistent with the secret findings for development.
Okay. I gave you a detailed memo. I am not going to go over each of the items. I see a sign of relief. But I am going to go off script a little bit. There are some major issues that I would like to have the applicant thinking about. One is on the variances that you're going to be seeking. If you go to the ZBA, we got into this plan a little bit more, started looking at the details that you had. And Dominic, you're going to want to take a look and see what we have in there. Make sure that you get every relief that you need, or you discuss it with them. No matter what they do with the zoning for the hotel, there is still that requirement in the code that 50 feet be open to the sky, and you're going to have some things in there, and I don't think you're going to get away from that, because I think that lot line will represent the lot line, and the 50 feet starts there. So that, I think, might be a new one that came up, but there are a couple in here that you want to take a look at. Also, the activities that are going on with Yonkers right now, as you know, that stuff is blown up. Everything's all over the place. Grading is changing on the site, on the areas that you had. Your survey plans have some relevance, but not much right now because of the way things are changing and the way they're going to change. I don't know what's going to come first. Yonkers is moving. They're supposed to be done end of the year. So, it doesn't look like that right now, but you're going to have to do something to bring that site condition up to current levels so that we can determine how it marries into the surrounding area. Your walls is one example. There are other things over there. There was going to be a ramp around it, but I don't know if that ramp's going to take place with the new diagonal intersection they have. I don't think that's proposed. So there's lands in there that's the new state taking, but I don't know, is the state still taking that for wetlands mitigations, or are they going to not take that property for eminent domain or for any other reason? So it would be good to find those things out as we move along. Losi Lane, I don't know if you have any status between you and the village board, but if there's something on that, you can report that to us. I assume it would go the same way as Cabela's, but I'm not sure. I don't know what status there is on that. The commuter lot right now is not where it's going to be, it's where it is. I think it looked to me when I was out there that they as a matter of convenience, they're using the area that was the old hotel, and that's where they're parking. That's what it looks like, and it's going to move. I don't know how your approvals, the coordination of that move, what's going to happen first. At some point, there's going to have to be a schedule, because if the board approves something, assuming you get to that point, if the board approves something and it's not in the configuration they approve it, I don't know what we really have. You can't go out there, and we can't, I don't think Gary can issue a building permit for something that's still under active work, partially on, partially off. So they may finish the interchange but not finish the commuter line. I'm not sure how that's going to work, so we kind of want to have some kind of schedule on what's going on there. The application is pending before the ZBA. You're moving before the planning board now. You'd really, I mean, for standing, you're presenting a plan that doesn't comply with our zoning ordinance. So it's at your risk. The applicant is acknowledging that, correct? Okay. So the board can move to a certain point, but at some point here, you got to make sure it makes sense. It's your time, it's their money. Got to make sure it all makes sense to continue if there are too many balls in the air in terms of zoning approvals and things before the DOT. I said I wasn't going to read them, so I'm not reading them. And I'm passing a lot of pages quickly. We talked about the access ramp in the front there. It's indicated that the park and ride facility and the gas station maintained at all times. You're going to put an island in there. You're going to have to tell us how you're going to do that. Is it night work, whatever it's going to be. So we'll have to make sure that can be handled. We have a whole big section on refuse collection in here. It's more than we usually write in our refuse collection. And I'll just say that it's important that we get it right here, because too many places I've seen where they don't get it right, and then we end up with roll-off containers in parking stalls and all over the place. So that's why we got so much on that, all right? The loading berths, as Jonathan mentioned, that's difficult to fit in after the fact, so you got to have a consideration of how you're handling that. I'm not going to talk about traffic and circulation. We have an expert here to talk about that.
I will talk about that.
Okay. And in ESOs, not right now, but at some point in the not too distant future, I think that they've done a lot of things that the ESOs wanted, but as the plan evolves and they get squeezed by the commuter lot, by things with DOT's doing or whatever, we've got to make sure that we're moving along with the ESO's blessing. And I guess that's all I got for now.
Well, my 8-page memo, I'm just getting out of
Gary,
there. No, I don't.
Before we go to John, I was counting over on that, I came up with 203, so I must have missed one, so I'm going to this part. Excuse me?
It's over.
I know, yeah, I must have counted over the wrong map, or I didn't have my glasses on at the time, so we're going to move the part. John, hi.
I only have a one-page memo. I looked at the map, not from because we're going to come back again, but will the site function? So that's what, will the site function as it's showing? And there are several concerns. One, you've addressed it with respect to the gas station imposing that island, having 2 lanes in. But the only access you have to this site is Lossy Lane, and looking at the queue that were anticipated to develop on-site, back from the light into the site, you do not have sufficient storage in the existing 2 left-turn lanes. So our recommendation, and it's attached to this, our memo copy, I'll give you a copy, is to have 2 lanes in as you do now, and then 2 lanes out until you get to the vicinity of the signal in which you would add that quick right turn lane. That gives you 2 good lanes for stacking. It doesn't affect that water pump station in the corner because it's exactly where it was with the laneage. It's more up into the site, and there's sufficient room without losing square footage, et cetera. We've taken the site and relayed it out, showing the width of the driveway that's attached. So that's one of our concerns. The second concern is in the vicinity of building 1, 2, and 7. I think there is a requirement that you do a little bit more looking at that, because that's a queuing nightmare that may knock out many of those spaces that you're counting on. Those buildings are roughly Building 1 and 2 are some 7,500 square feet. You're limited in the parking in that area of tightness, and you have two, I'll call it order boards at that for Building 1 and 1 lane. It's going to be the service lane, and I can see backing from the order boards out into the parking area, knocking out a whole row of parking and doing any number of other things. So the question we look at is that would like to have an idea as to what the anticipated queuing is at all the drive-throughs and their impact on the parking, and if the impact on the parking is so great, maybe we not count those parking as functional parking spaces. There's going to be a requirement that we have handicap ramps going from the either the parking areas onto the sidewalks. There's no detail attached to the details with a standard pedestrian walkway. It has to be up to code, up to standard. And you should look at the operation of the park and ride, especially as it affects your site, even though you're not going to build it. It does have an impact on that parking area in the corner, and you may want to look at reorienting that so in fact the park and ride facility operates by itself by changing that parking area in front of Building 5. And those are just the general comments that we saw. Look at more specifics, but
Okay.
it was more of making the site function as opposed to details. And that's basically our summary here with respect to functionality.
No, Kevin, no, is it Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I presume is that a bus shelter that, where the handicap park is by the, out there, or you guys want to get over there? Is this still a bus shelter? What is this second arrow from? Where's the second arrow coming from? Is it coming from here? So there's gonna be,
Yeah.
what I'm asking is what's behind building 5?
Yeah, one of the lanes is a drop-off for the bus, which is a separate lane with a bus shelter, and then the other access aisle is the exiting from the parking, the way I'm interpreting it, from the parking lot itself.
So that's the,
So what happens is you now have 2 exit lanes, and then when you get to when it comes further out into the parking area, it goes into 1 lane in, 1 lane out, and that's going to cause some confusion. So that whole area has to be reworked to take into that functionality.
so when the bus comes up.
The bus comes in between Building 3 and 5. And when the bus comes in,
That's a bus route.
right, the bus route comes in, makes a right turn, comes through the first left, and then cuts through, and then drops off, and then goes back out.
And they, as I had mentioned, they do show a do not enter sign there, but the bus will be facing, oncoming traffic, and then, it'll be pretty confusing, I think, at that.
No. You're saying oncoming traffic. Could you pull up?
Sure.
So, that's okay. So the bus is gonna come here. They're gonna make the left.
And make the first turn.
Right here, so that's a one-way, that's only one way.
It's one way.
It's a one-way,
And then this becomes a right, comes out.
okay.
See, when they come out, they're facing into the
So
traffic.
this has to be, okay.
Okay, so you can either be shifted this way, or put an island here and change this parking area, then go feed that parking area to this side. The park, vehicles going to the parking lot, come in the same way, but they go past where the bus will pull in. And they go into the parking area, and then they come out here.
But also when they come in, they have to scoop around go this way and come back, yeah, okay.
And then up over.
So I wanted them to show what's going on.
All right, so the steel wedges, okay.
Where's that picture?
That's why it just has to be cleaned out.
Yeah, okay, understood. Anything else?
That's basic.
Okay. Robert?
Traffic lights within this complex?
No, I don't think traffic lights are required. I think we may want to put some, depends upon the outcome of the queuing analysis, because I'm really concerned about the front of the area between 1 and 2 where you have limited parking. That whole gets locked up and then it's going to spread as a mushroom. I'm less concerned up at building 4. I'm assuming that's a drive-in bank. Building 4, it looks that way. It looks like come into 2, I don't see any order boards, and I see 2 pickup locations.
We don't know what it is, just that it has a drive up.
Okay, but it shows 2 drive-ups.
McDonald's has those now. So does Sound.
It looks like 2 drive-ups, or maybe it's 1 drive-up. It's just not labeled, okay?
Yeah.
And then lastly, for building 7.
Where are you seeing a drop off? I think that little
Yeah,
thing
building.
is the side of the building.
It's in the, in other documents, it lists some of the buildings as fast food. And each of the fast food buildings has a drive lane.
Label it, label it.
It's not a drive-up, then you can change it.
I got you. Anything else, Robert?
I was just wondering whether there's any other way of graphically displaying this. I mean, we're looking down at the rooftop, in a sense. Is there a way of somehow projecting this that, you know, that there's a height of a building and more dimensional within the realm of what we have here?
We're in the process of working on the architecture portion of it. We're not ready to present any of that information yet, but we will be, yes.
Even if it was not exactly like the architecture, but just see a building,
Yeah, we can have something conceptual.
yeah, that would help. I think would help to analyze this whole thing.
Okay.
Rich? I'm sorry, is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Rich?
Again, I think I'm the one that brought up traffic and as a concern since new exit 131 was done, 3 or 4 years ago with a traffic count of X. And since then, there's been a lot of new applications, I would say within 3 miles of exit 131. So the traffic count's going to be higher than the original plan of 131. So if we're going ahead with the simulation model, I'd like to see what we started with when we had 131, what's been added. And also, you know, you have some things that are in the works now, like Ninja Road is going to have 2,000 homes right across the street there. So before you do the simulation model, I'd like to talk about it. And what are you going to include as new counts? And then do we have the ability, once the simulation model is done, can we add things and see how the impact is?
Maria was successful in getting hopefully the simulation model from the state. I have to caution you on the fact is that they use VisiSim, and the most user-friendly one that's for the board's sake would be a synchro analysis, so we're going to have to marry the two. The first step we're going to take is to make sure we develop a model that basically extends along 32, not just the interchange, north and south of the interchange. And then that the results of the synchro model that the board will use to plug in different developments as they come online is calibrated to what the state predicted, so everybody's predicting the same thing initially. The volumes may ultimately change, but we want to make sure that whatever volumes are established as part of that interchange give us the similar type of results. And then we're going to be adding this development and other developments that come on board to the system and see what impact it has from an overall traffic flow. And I think that's what you're looking at, visually seeing what. Sometimes you can look at a visual on the simulation and find out there's a bottleneck in one location caused by any number of issues that have to be addressed. And there's ways of handling that.
Yeah, and then I don't know how we address applications that are 3 to 5 years out, like Harriman Transit-Oriented City. That should be, I mean, that's pretty far out, but I think we should just add it in to see what the impact is, as you know.
Until we get the,
We gotta get the model first.
Yeah.
Minute we get the model, and we've all agreed that the extensions
Yeah.
that we're dealing with, then we should look at that and then be able to put input into that.
Right, okay,
Okay.
agreed, yeah.
But we've got the first step. We got the information from the
Okay.
state. We have to make sure it's, it's like the state giving you income tax forms. You can't read it. You read them, but the one
Right.
difference good. So we gotta make sure it works, okay?
Okay.
I hopefully it's all set, but
there's a lot of information on there. I didn't look at it.
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna look at it and see what it says. That's,
As we develop it and input the projects that we're working with, this project, only applications that are before us that are viable right now will be put into this program. And then we can.
you have to make sure you have a method of inputting from other nodes, and we can do that, okay?
That's your baby.
I'm trying to figure out who to give it to. I think I have an answer.
Okay. Rich, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Sandy?
My comments, they remain the same. The circulation around the fast food restaurants, it scares me. I think it's dangerous where it goes from 2 lanes to 1 ways, especially around building number 7. I think people are gonna get so confused, but where that factors into the development coverage, the applicant already needs a variance for development coverage. John had said that, again, with circulation, if something gets backed up and those parking spaces basically become unusable, where is all this gonna go? I mean, I know the applicant wants a waiver for parking as well, so if what they're proposing isn't even gonna be usable, I'm just really concerned with those fast food restaurants and how that traffic is going to manipulate around them. The biggest one is right here, where you've got 2-way traffic and then all of a sudden 1 way. And that's building 7. Those cars coming around there to go out, and then you've got 2-way traffic on those side lots, and then the main one is 2-way traffic. That's a big problem right there for me.
Okay.
I've been consistent with that. So.
Also, I realized that in my report, I hadn't gone over this, I skipped over it, but we had noted that in order to get the shared waiver, the shared parking waiver, you'll need to show that the peak parking demand for the restaurants is staggered and that the sharing will work, that the peak of the stores, the peak of the hotel won't be at the same time as the peak of the fast food restaurants or the sit-down restaurants, so that it's not just a matter of the planning board allowing you a 25% reduction automatic. You have to show that the different peaks of parking demand offset each other so that sharing will work.
Understood.
Applicant, have any questions for us?
No, I think we're clear.
Good?
Actually, I try not to. I know, Jonathan, we haven't seen your report, or John's, we haven't seen yours. Hearing your report, Jonathan, I think you're maybe a little bit behind because with regards to the parking analysis that's been done, John's firm has looked at that. Seeker has been concluded. But what I'd like to throw out, and I think for everyone's benefit, is that we spend a couple hours today, and we do it regularly, with the DOT in Yonkers to coordinate our 2 designs. For example, we had to bring into the fray the island that John had requested, at the intersection. We reviewed that with them. The expansion of the access lanes going into the site We reviewed that with them. That impacted some of their design. So we're working back and forth to resolve our internal issues with that facility, the temporary facility and the permanent facility. Just hearing the comments tonight, I think we would suggest or would request that if we could schedule a workshop with your consultants to sit down and roll up our sleeves and go through some of the, let's say, threshold issues, it would be beneficial for us, I think, and probably beneficial for the board as well. So we can iron these things out before we get back here next time.
That'd be fine. I'd like to hear about the DOT taking this property, because that affects your coverage, it affects a bunch of things.
We have it all surveyed, so we have all that, so which we can present in a clean
They're
document.
gonna take a ramp around this property. They're not building that. They still take a ramp.
All the takings are done. The takings are done. The takings are done, and the temporary and permanent easements have been filed. So yes, all of that work has been done for months and months.
My question is, what's they gonna do with that property now that they're not using it for a ramp? They used to-
We're gonna ask for it back.
What's that?
I said we're gonna ask for it back.
Right, if you're gonna ask for it back, that might resolve the issue. I don't know where that stands and whether, they took it fairly quickly, so I guess they can give it back.
They took it pretty quickly, but going the other way, we know it's going to be much slower. But we've started that conversation, so we're going to continue having those conversations. But it will go a lot slower in the reverse.
If the state is not going to use it, and it's their land, and you want to acquire it, you address the possibility of getting a UNO, use and occupancy of the land, or parking the land, with them on a temporary basis until the ownership can be transferred?
We started that conversation with the sanitary line. We now have designed it so we don't have to proceed with that, but that conversation has started as well.
I'm looking at it, they're not gonna build a ramp, you're gonna want to acquire the property, the grade work.
Right.
Maybe there's a way of getting what they call a UNO permit, that's a standard highway permit, that allows you to occupy it, use it, and then still proceed to reacquire land.
It's a good suggestion.
Right. Follow up on that.
Steve, so are this development coverage, are these numbers accurate right now? The
Yes.
65 and the
Yes.
Okay.
I will say yes, but it includes the 0.4 acres of Melody Lane.
And you're gonna go to the village.
We've already had a conversation with the mayor regarding this on 2 separate occasions, and we're going to wait for the zoning kind of to get out of the way, and then we're going to come in but basically we're going to do the same deal that was originally with Cabela's.
But that's fundamental to your project.
Yes.
Not just coverage. It's-
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone's good? So we can say thank you for coming tonight, gentlemen?
So we're gonna-
Thank you.